everyone, welcome to Active Self-Protection Extra. Today on John's Briefs with defensive attorney extraordinaire Tim Forshee from Forshee Law. Make sure you go check him out. Get your NFA trust from Tim.
Yeah, those are
you
fun.
need to do that.
Nobody's bleeding when we do those.
Very easy on that. We had a terrible incident out of Texas of an officer who tased a guy and then shot him. And we've had two instances, both of these out of Texas, of the taser failing and then the officer then using that and saying, okay, my taser failed, going to the gun. And I want to talk to the attorney about the legalities of this. Firearms Legal Protection is who I trust to help me after a use of force incident. If you're a Firearms Legal Protection member, you can attend our monthly Active Self-Protection training seminars for free. Check out all they offer to their members at the link below. So if you go look at these, okay, so in both of these cases, in the most recent one, the officer was fired for what he did. He was prosecuted for murder, didn't have lesser included charges, was acquitted of murder at trial, okay? So now he gets to go on with the rest of his life living in the community where this happened.
I'm not familiar with Texas law on that. Can they recharge him for a lesser included?
I don't think they can because it's a grand jury indictment, but I'm not positive. Right. In the previous one, the officer, again, it was a big dude, tried to tase him, didn't work, draw his gun and shot him. The grand jury no billed him, right? Mm-hmm. And in Texas, every homicide goes to a grand jury. It's not a prosecutor's decision, although, of course, the prosecutor gets an awful lot of leeway in these. I don't know, have you figured out that I hate grand juries? If you haven't been watching this much. But I want to talk to you, Tim, because listen, so in the case that we saw, guy shows up, he's pretty chill. Now, he's drunk as a skunk. And I said, we're not going to talk about the part where the officer was way badge heavy. And I think he was way badge heavy.
Very good term, yeah.
And he, well, I'm going to detain you. Based on what, man? Slow your roll, but then that gets the thing escalating. So he pops the guy with a taser and then instantly drives that taser and walks right in and basically puts it this far from him. And the guy paws at his taser, nope, and he shoots him. I look at that and I think it's abhorrent, but I'd love your take as a criminal defense attorney.
I think abhorrent's the perfect word. I mean, when you say badge heavy, I'm assuming everybody's heard you say that and they know what you mean, but basically you don't come in and just start running people's lives at 100% volume because you have a badge. It's like, you got to be, I always tell people that the most important trait for a good police officer is not their marksmanship skills, it's not their ability to bench press iron, it's their ability to be a good psychologist, right? If I can get you into the back of my squad car politely and comfortably.
If I got to arrest you, I got to talk you into those cuffs.
I'm a way better cop than the guy who's wrestling on the ground and causing broken bones and worse, right? So, and that's what I think you need to understand. I was a bouncer for a lot of years. I've been an auxiliary police officer. I've never actually initiated an arrest on my own. I've cuffed people, but only at the direction of other folks. But I was a bouncer for a long time, like 8 or 10 years. And so I was really good. I was never a good fighter, but I was a really good de-escalator. I would calm people down. Hey, but let me buy you a drink and we'll move it over here and we'll leave that jerk over here. And then I go tell that guy, yeah, that jerk, I moved him in. It's just a matter of being a psychologist and calming people down. And that's what you want with a cop. And this guy was the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
This guy was just throwing kerosene on a fire the moment he showed up. Like you said, the guy was clearly drunk. I couldn't gather from the video exactly what the cop was responding to. I'm assuming it was like a brawl of some sort in the parking lot outside of this bar or liquor store, right?
The guy that got shot was the victim of an assault. And so that's why he shows up and he goes, hey, I'm sorry for all this broken glass out here. And the guy's like, oh, you did it? No, somebody else had grabbed him and then there'd been some broken glass and those people had left. And he was drunk as all get out. Right. But that guy was like a pillar in his community.
Wow.
And played high school football there. Everybody knew him. He was a good dude.
Just a tragedy.
And he was super pro-police. So that's why he comes in. He's drunk, right? He comes in all nice.
But he's trying to be helpful. He's telling the officer, be safe, have a good night.
Yeah,
he's trying to help. Yeah, exactly. And that cop wasn't listening to any of that. That cop just basically decided, I'm going to cuff this guy because I don't know what's going on. Until I know what's going on, I'm going to cuff the guy. And I understand that mindset, but that's not how you go about it.
Okay, so that's all the previous stuff.
Right.
Now, in the moment, the officer decides, wait a minute, this guy is now physically, well, he's not really physically resistive. He's verbally resistive and backing away.
And walking away.
And walking away. Right. So the officer decides, I'm going to use my taser to take this guy into custody. I think a non-physically resistive but verbally non-compliant suspect, you shouldn't tase that guy.
Absolutely not.
I think that's probably against the policy of the department, and if it's not, it should be. And that is a use of force that the courts have decided is between ordinary and lethal. It's kind of a not quite lethal mid-level of force.
And don't forget, it can be lethal.
Well, we say all the time, if you tase somebody, they're going to get a head injury.
Right.
If you successfully tase someone, then they're going to lock up and fall over and not be able to protect their head and neck. For that, high chance that they're going to get a head injury, which means that the taser is useful when the risk of the head injury is less than the danger of what they're doing.
That's right.
And that's a pretty high bar.
Yep.
Now it fails. Okay, well, shoot. Now what do I have? So the officer then just decides, so he drives in this close and the guy kind of paws at his taser. And I had a bunch of people in the comments that said, well, John, his taser didn't work and the guy was trying to grab his taser and then he could use it on the officer.
Single shot taser. It's a stun gun at that point. A stun gun causes pain.
So the taser is discharged. Even if it's one of the brand new Model 7s.
That have doubles. Or
that have doubles?
Quadruples even. Yeah.
Okay, well then he should have used the second set at close range, and he didn't. Right? But it's discharged until it gets reloaded with a new cartridge. It's a stun gun, which is a pain compliance device, which I've been hit with shock knives and even with the stun gun, and it is painful.
I actually have done an upper level class. I won't talk who the instructor was because he was an amazing instructor, but I won't. But the point is that we actually had to pass a qualification test while we were stabbed with a stun gun.
Right.
And it hurt.
It's
it really
miserable.
hurt. And it kind of made your arm go a little bit numb, but you realize I can still shoot.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and that's the whole point of the exercise is to show you that it's a pain compliance tool and you can survive it. So.
Now, in the case we've had officers on the channel whose taser has not discharged, that it's a live unit with a live cartridge, and a guy's taking it from him, and then the officer goes, now he's going to use it on me and incapacitate me. Different story. But in this case, he didn't have that. And so what do you think of him drawing the gun and shooting the guy?
I think it was absolutely illegal. I mean, if I had been the prosecutor, I wouldn't have charged first-degree murder. Don't forget, first-degree murder requires premeditation. And we saw the same thing, and controversial, I'll apologize in advance, but with the George Floyd matter. I mean, that cop clearly violated the law.
Yeah.
I believe that cop
belongs
in
convicted.
prison.
He's
But
in prison.
I don't think that was a first-degree murder.
Right.
I don't think he decided to kill that gentleman.
Right.
I think that he was poorly trained, he was aggressive, he was stupid, he was a jerk, perhaps he was racist. I'm not going to get into that. But the point is, I don't think he showed up on scene saying, I'm going to kill this guy.
Right.
And that's not first-degree murder. It's second-degree murder or perhaps even manslaughter.
Manslaughter.
I think that this guy did not commit first-degree murder. He didn't go to that liquor store saying, I'm going to kill this guy.
No.
He made bad choices, bad decisions. I would say, to me, that would be a second-degree murder case. He intended to kill the guy without premeditation. That's what happened here.
Yep.
When he shot the guy, he's intended to kill him.
So you don't shoot someone and go, well, I didn't want to kill him.
If you do, that's illegal.
That's
if
another
you're shooting
problem.
somebody intending to merely wound them, despite what Joe Biden would have us believe in his press conferences, that is illegal.
Yep.
You cannot do that.
Yep.
Because if you're in fear for your life, you don't shoot to merely wound somebody. So, the minute he drew his weapon and opened fire on that guy, he intended to cause great bodily injury or death.
Yep.
And that, to me, when the guy then dies, since what you did was on purpose, that's second-degree murder. If you can prove premeditation, now you charge him with first-degree murder. I would hazard a guess that in the racially polarized society that we now live in, that played a part in how the prosecutor decided to prosecute this thing. That if he prosecuted for anything less than that, it would have looked like it was some sort of a political agenda that would have been furthering the wrong side or the right side, however you want to look at it. And I think that may have factored into this. I think if they charged him for second-degree murder, if I was on his jury and I said, and somebody said, you only have one choice here, first-degree murder or acquittal, I would have to say, well,
acquittal.
I'm sorry, acquittal. You shouldn't have charged him with first-degree murder.
Right.
And that's where I say the system worked, but the system didn't work, right? I mean, that guy should be in prison for that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he probably has more remorse than you can possibly imagine. I'll bet he doesn't
sure
wake
hope
up
so.
any morning or go to sleep any night without seeing this play over in his head.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's filled with remorse. So what?
Doesn't bring
We live
anybody
in a
back.
society where it doesn't bring the guy back, and we live in a society where even if you're remorseful, you still have to pay the piper. And to me, the piper here should have been a second-degree murder charge, not first. But again, I don't know all the facts. I wasn't the prosecutor, so maybe that was the right call. It just doesn't seem it to me.
Well,
But,
certainly with lesser included, manslaughter.
at least give them that option. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
give the jury
that's a political decision right there. But yeah, I mean, this guy, there's no way anybody could say that he posed a threat to human life. He was walking away. He was, as you said, an amiable drunk. He didn't appreciate getting tased. I'm sure that at least one of the barbs hit him, and he tried to swat the thing away to stop the electric current. I mean, I'm sure it's not pleasant.
No.
I don't see anything there where there was even an implied risk to a human life, and so it's completely unjustified.
And we saw cases like Kim Potter, where she was convicted of manslaughter when she thought she was going for her taser, instead went for her gun, and shot and killed a man that she didn't intend.
It's a terrible case, but manslaughter was the appropriate charge. She was
Manslaughter.
negligent. She wasn't intentionally harming that guy. Yeah.
Appropriate stuff.
Yep.
So, of course, you put something in front of a jury, you never know what they're going to say.
Right.
You never know how they're going to go. And And I know some other folks, it's really funny. When we do the badge cams, Mike and I, there's kind of no winning. It's either you're a bootlicker and, how dare you let cops get away with this, or, how dare you not be harder on cops, or how dare you make calls like this because you weren't there in the moment, and how dare you not support police, and the criminals deserve things. Well, guys, as a society, when we deputize somebody, when we say you carry the right to use force up to and including deadly force on behalf of the community, with that, we've trained you highly to do so, and we expect you to make the right decisions in the moment.
And something you just said was so important. So when I watch this video, in our current society, where we are right now, defund the police, police brutality, racially motivated shootings, defund the police. The problem that our police departments are experiencing now is that everybody's sick of being Monday morning quarterbacked into prison by people that weren't there.
Sure.
And so we've seen cops leaving the force in droves, unprecedented resignations, unprecedented quitting. So we have the most shorthanded police departments probably in our country's history per capita right now. And would you want your 19-year-old child to become a cop right now?
Oh, no.
It's incredible. So we've got fewer and fewer cops. Less and less money for training those cops, less and less money for screening the cops and properly hiring the cops. And so you see something like this that just makes the whole problem worse. And now,
and here's a cool thing.
It's so terrible.
The weird thing is that in many places, so I don't think there's in any major community in America that actual police funding has gone down. Right. So they've actually gone up, which they need to. But because we don't have enough officers, it's not just about the budget to train them. It's about the fact that who do we leave off of patrol?
Yeah.
So that we can pull them off and train them. Well, we don't have the time to train them, and we don't have the numbers in order to affect the training, in order to do it right. So our officers are still not getting trained right. And of course, that's because of policy and higher ups. That's because of the ones who say, wait a minute, we have to let you get put at huge risks, and those problems exist. So there's a whole nother discussion on that. But listen, hear me. You've heard the attorney say that the only reason I think that the jury came back with not guilty in this case is because it was a murder one charge.
That's my read, yeah.
And if that could be political, the grand jury, you don't get to see in the grand jury proceedings, right? They're sealed, closed, and so you don't know what the prosecutor presented and how that went. But we saw that case. We saw another case, where the officer, same thing, but a bigger guy, and the jury just didn't even bill him. Okay, well, if the jury doesn't bill, the jury doesn't bill. Yeah. The grand jury. But regardless of that, generally what we're saying here is just because your taser doesn't work, you can't escalate to the gun. No, absent a significant risk of death or great bodily harm, which if there was a risk of death, and you're solo, you shouldn't have a taser out to begin with.
I was going to say, why'd you even tase the guy?
Right.
I mean, everybody there knew him. He's just walking away. Just find out, hey, do you guys know that guy's name? And then maybe you follow up with questioning later, or track him down at his house tomorrow morning when he's sobered up.
Call it in. I need a backup. Yeah. I need somebody else here to help me.
I didn't see an emergency there at any time until the shots were fired. Yeah.
So I think once he rolled in and started coming in hot like that, he just started a ball in motion that ended up leading to death. Yeah. And death in a way that, quite frankly, sure looked to me like murder too.
Yeah.
The fact that he wasn't convicted of murder one without the other charges being considered by the jury doesn't tell me anything about those charges.
And don't forget what's going to happen next. There's going to be a $20 million civil suit that's going to get decided. And
who gets to pay that?
And that's the thing. Everybody says that'll show the cops. Who pays that? The taxpayers.
Taxpayers pay.
Exactly right. So it's just another cost added to our societal burden right now. So.
Yeah. So officers, hear me. When the taser fails, I always say you got to be willing to throw chingazos sometimes, right? You got to have your defensive tactics. You gotta be ready to throw hands at times. And now with that big, strong dude, do I want to do that? No. Which is why I go, do I absolutely need to tase this guy right now? No. I'm gonna leave my taser where it is, and I'm gonna go, okay, bro, I'm sorry. Come here, talk to me.
Right.
And it's okay, officers, hear me. When you find yourself on the wrong track, Mike says this all the time. It's okay to recalibrate and go, I'm going to change track here.
That's right.
And go a different route. So in that way, we can affect a positive outcome.
Don't we all do that in our interpersonal relationships all the time? You start having an argument with somebody, you go, you know what, let me take a breath. And then we do it all the time. Cops can do it too.
Hey, I screwed that up. That was really wrong. Let's try again. I say that with my wife all the time. I love you, dear. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. Please forgive me. Be my friend. I love you. I'm sorry. I screwed that up. Can I try again?
There you go.
And let's do that. Tim, man, I appreciate the discussion.
Always. That's a sad video. It really makes me sad. Yeah.